She was 11 years old when she learned what a police search meant. They took her father in plastic cuffs, shoved her face first into a kitchen wall, and left her little brother screaming in the hallway. No one said why. No warrant. No apology. Now, 12 years later, they're back. Different uniforms, same eyes. And this time, they're not just searching. They're planting. Planting what, you ask? A body. In her trunk. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Step out of the vehicle. Now. The voice was flat. Controlled. Too calm for a man who had just pulled a gun. Aisha froze. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles pale against her dark skin. The red and blue lights flickered through the rain, dancing across her windshield like warning flares. She knew this town, Bakersfield, California, and she knew this routine. The same highway. The same faces. The same fear. She rolled the window halfway. Officer, can I ask why I'm being stopped? Step out of the car. She glanced at the rearview mirror. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She had her ID, her registration, her law school badge still hanging from her neck. But none of it mattered. He opened the door himself. Officer Reed, badge number 6149, yanked her out like luggage. She stumbled, caught herself, kept quiet. She'd done this dance before. What's in the trunk? He asked. Just books. My case files. I'm interning with. Open it. She hesitated. He didn't wait. His partner, Officer Kimmel, a broad man with mud-colored gloves and a crooked belt, was already at the back. A click. A pop. The trunk opened. Kimmel whistled low. What do we have here? Aisha turned, confused. He reached in, pulled out a duffel bag, black, unzipped, heavy. Her mouth opened slightly. She didn't own a duffel. Officer Reed was already calling it in. 10 to 54. Repeat. We have code 48A, possible transport of dismembered remains. Aisha's stomach dropped. That's not mine, she whispered. Of course it's not, Reed said, smirking. They never are. Within minutes, she was on the ground. Face pressed to asphalt. Knees in her back. Hands zip-tied so tight her fingers tingled. People drove past. Slowed down. Watched. No one stopped. Reed leaned in. His voice low, breath sour. You really thought you'd make it through my town just because you got some badge from UCLA? You people think a degree makes you invisible? She didn't answer. She couldn't. The cuffs cut into her wrists. Don't say a word, Kimmel added. Lawyer or not, you're just another one with a story. She was shoved into the back seat. No rights read. No call offered. The cruiser smelled of sweat and cold vinyl. She stared at the blood on the bag they'd pulled from her trunk. It wasn't hers. She didn't know whose it was. But she knew one thing for sure. Someone had just made her a suspect in a murder she didn't commit, and no one was coming to help. The station was colder than she remembered. They hadn't let her make a call. They hadn't read her rights. They hadn't even logged her name when they locked her in the interview room. The cameras in the ceiling blinked red. She counted 6. Still, no one came. Aisha sat stiff in the metal chair, her wrists now in real cuffs, fingers throbbing. Her blazer was soaked from the rain, her curls clinging to her forehead. She kept her eyes forward, jaw tight. Then the door opened. A man in a black windbreaker stepped in. No badge, no nameplate, just eyes too calm and hands too clean. Miss Carter, he said flatly. I'm Detective Ward. She didn't answer. He sat down, folding his hands like a pastor about to preach. Let's talk about what we found in your vehicle. Aisha stayed quiet. Ward smiled thinly. Female victim. Caucasian. Mid-30s. Wrapped in a tarp. DNA already confirms she's been dead at least 24 hours. You're the only person tied to that vehicle. You drove it across state lines. She blinked. Across state. Interstate 5, he cut in. Oregon plates. California destination. That's enough to trigger federal jurisdiction if I want it. Aisha's voice was calm. That's not my duffel bag. I've never seen it before. Convenient. She met his stare. I locked my trunk this morning. You can check the timestamps. My dash cam uploads every 30 minutes. No one touched that bag before those officers pulled me over. Ward's smile didn't fade. There was no dash cam when we searched the car. Her heart skipped. That's impossible, she whispered. It wasn't there, he repeated. Aisha's throat tightened. She'd installed the dash cam herself, hardwired into the fuse box. She checked the feed before every drive. She'd watched it recording that very morning. They had removed it. I want to call my attorney, she said. Ward didn't flinch. You're not under arrest. I'm cuffed to a table. You're being detained. Big difference. She leaned forward. You tampered with my vehicle. You erased evidence. You removed a camera without a warrant. Ward stood. You're not as smart as you think you are, Miss Carter. Fancy degrees don't mean much when there's blood on your property. She held his gaze. Neither does a badge when you lie under oath. He paused, just for a moment, then turned and walked out. The door slammed shut behind him. Aisha looked down at her wrists. Blood was crusting beneath the cuffs. Her bag, the real one, was gone. Her laptop, her notes, her ID. They weren't charging her yet, because they were still building the lie. And once they did, she would be just another woman in a jumpsuit, screaming the truth to walls that didn't listen. She wasn't booked. She was disappeared. For hours. No phone. No lawyer. No charges. And no clock in the room. She didn't know if it was day or night. When the door opened again, a new figure stepped in. Not a detective this time, younger, meaner, wearing tactical boots and a tan uniform with no name badge. He looked like someone who liked pain more than paperwork. He dragged a second chair across the floor and sat sideways on it, arms draped over the back. I'm Officer Cole. You can call me whatever you like. Most people just say, sir. Aisha didn't move. You know what I think? He said, tapping a finger against the table. I think you picked the wrong town to pretend you're somebody. She stayed silent. You know how many people roll through here thinking they're special? He smirked. They all sound the same once they start crying. Still nothing from her. Cole leaned forward. So let me lay this out. Your car had a body. The bag had your fingerprints. And just to sweeten the file, you got no alibi, no dash cam, and no one on the payroll who's gonna fly in here and say this was a misunderstanding. He opened a folder. Photos. Graphic. Blood, tarp, fragments of bone. He pushed them toward her. This is what we charge you with. But here's the fun part. If you don't cooperate, that bag gets tied to another case. A bigger one. A trafficking case. And guess what? We've got a judge ready to sign that enhancement. Aisha's jaw clenched. You're inventing charges. We're interpreting evidence, he replied. She looked up. I steady. You're trying to bury me before a court even sees me. He smiled, satisfied. That's the game. And right now, sweetheart, you're losing. The door opened. Again. This time it was Kimmel, the officer from the roadside stop. He whispered something into Cole's ear. Cole grinned. Huh. Looks like your internship isn't just canceled. They just pulled your ID from the state bar registry. Said it was issued in error. You're not even officially registered anymore. Aisha blinked. That's not possible. Oh, it's very possible. All it takes is a phone call. Or a threat. He leaned closer. Or a favor. She felt her chest tighten. They weren't just building a case. They were erasing her. He stood up, tossed the file back onto the table. Take a nap, counselor. Tomorrow we start the real questions. You'll be here a while. The door closed again. He locked it this time, louder than before. And Aisha Carter, law student, rising advocate, daughter of a wrongly imprisoned man, sat alone in silence. All she had left was memory, and what they hadn't stolen yet. She slept for 20 minutes. Maybe. The light above her flickered in cycles, enough to confuse time. Her mouth was dry. Her wrists ached. Her sense of control, long gone. Then came the paperwork. A silent woman rolled in a cart. No name, no words, just a stack of forms and a pen with no cap. Aisha didn't move. The woman dropped a release form. Consent to voluntary questioning, she said. Aisha raised her head. I do not consent. I want a lawyer. The woman didn't blink. Sign or don't. But until you do, you don't get fed. That was new. Aisha leaned back. Withholding food is coercion. This isn't Guantanamo, sweetheart. There's no cameras here. No records. This isn't an arrest. It's a field classification hold. The term hit her like cold water. Field classification hold. Code 12-7B. Used in border zones. Meant for suspected smugglers, undocumented migrants, and people with unconfirmed legal status. She was born in Sacramento. Aisha spoke slowly. That code doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. The woman shrugged. You look like a lot of things. And right now, you don't have proof of any of them. She slid the tray forward. A sandwich. No napkin. A lukewarm bottle of water with no label. Eat. Or don't. Then she walked out. Aisha sat still. She was alone in a legal vacuum. No case number. No rights. No name in the system. She looked down at the release form again. Saw a line at the bottom. Subject waived right to legal counsel under temporary domestic emergency statute. Her breath caught. That statute hadn't been used since 2004. She looked up at the ceiling. The camera light was still blinking. But she finally understood. It wasn't on. It was just there to make her behave. They didn't want a trial. They wanted disappearance. And they were almost done. She stared at the tray again. The bread was stale. The water was cloudy. And still, she ate. Because she had to stay awake. Because tomorrow they would bring more lies. Because if she cracked, if they broke her, her silence would write its own confession. And Aisha Carter wasn't going to be a name they erased. Not yet. They moved her at dawn. No warning. No cuffs this time. Just a blanket tossed over her shoulders and a shove through a side exit. Aisha squinted at the rising sun. A black unmarked SUV waited by the curb. Two men stood beside it. Neither wore badges. She hesitated. One of them opened the door. In. No choice. She climbed in. Doors locked immediately. The vehicle pulled off, tires crunching gravel. They took back roads, no signs, no GPS voice, just the low hum of speed. No one spoke. The man beside her shaved head, earpiece, silent, watched her like a malfunctioning machine. The one in the front passenger seat finally turned. Miss Carter, we're transferring you to central detention for formal processing under Statute 9E. She blinked. That's not a statute that applies to civilians. It does now. 9E is for espionage suspects. Federal threats. I'm a student. The man smiled. And the woman in your trunk was a federal witness. Turns out you were transporting something a bit bigger than a body. Her breath caught. They were raising the stakes. She didn't know the woman's name. Didn't even know if the body was real. But now they were tying her to something national. Something lethal. The man leaned closer. If you're smart, you'll sign the confession packet. Say it was coercion. Say you were working for someone else. Let us plug you into the narrative. You might see daylight in 10 years. She stared forward. He sighed. You really want to die a headline? She whispered. I want my file. He frowned. What? She turned toward him. My detainment log. Statute 9E requires a record of custody within 6 hours of transit. You just acknowledged the statute. That means you've confirmed jurisdiction. That means I get a file. He looked genuinely surprised. The man in the front seat narrowed his eyes. How do you know that? She didn't blink. Because I studied it. I briefed on it. And 3 months ago, I wrote a mock appellate defense under 9E for an international law competition. I won. Silence. Her voice hardened. And if you think I'm going to die in a system I memorized before I ever touched your floor, you picked the wrong woman. The car slowed. They didn't say another word. She leaned back, heart racing, mouth dry. But her hands stopped shaking. Because now they knew. She wasn't just a target. She was a threat. They booked her at Central under the name Unknown Black Female, hold for national review. Not her name. Not her case. Not her truth. But they made it real. The intake officer didn't meet her eyes. The paperwork had no fingerprints. No charges. Just a box marked, pending federal confirmation. She was led to a private cell. No bars. Just walls and glass and a door that locked with no sound. She sat on the metal bench and waited. Minutes passed. Hours. Then the lights went red. Emergency lockdown. Doors sealed. Guards scrambled. Then silence. And finally, a voice from the speaker above her. You've been flagged as a high-tier security risk under the Witness Endangerment Protocol. Effective immediately. Aisha stood. You mean Witness 42A, she said into the ceiling. That's who you planted in my car. Silence. Then the voice returned. That witness was scheduled to testify before a grand jury in D.C. You intercepted her transit. She smiled faintly. You mean your officers kidnapped her, staged a murder, and used my car as a disposal site? That's not the record. She stepped forward. Then let's talk about the record. Chain of custody. Digital logs. Agency crossover. You can't process 9E without cross-branch validation. That means internal communication trails. Show me one. The voice paused. Then the tone shifted. What do you want? She exhaled. Slowly. My laptop. My briefcase. My original case files. And I want one outbound call to the registry clerk at UCLA Law. You don't have clearance. But I have something better, she snapped. I have precedent. United States versus Renault, 1993. Civilian detainee. Flagged under wrongful espionage index. Know how it ended? Silence. They settled for $3.6 million, and the prison director lost his pension. You want to repeat? The speaker cut off. 10 seconds. Then the door opened. A guard entered, holding a tablet. Type it yourself. One message. 100 words. That's it. Aisha sat down and began typing fast, her fingers still raw from zip ties. Every word mattered. This is Aisha Carter. Detained unlawfully under federal pretense. My ID was deactivated. I request verification of my UCLA enrollment, legal clinic authorization, and clerkship under Professor Nadine Rothschild. If you receive this, notify the California Innocence Project immediately. Use keyword 48A. They'll know. She had sinned. The guard stared at her like she was radioactive, then left. Aisha leaned back. She had no idea if the message would make it through. But if it did, if even one clerk read it, a wire would buzz. A name would resurface. And somewhere, someone would ask a question they weren't supposed to ask, which meant someone else would start to panic. Good. Let them panic. They came for her 12 hours later. 3 guards. No cuffs. No warning. They led her down a silent hallway into a private briefing room. No windows, just one chair, and a screen mounted to the wall. The room smelled of bleach and panic. Aisha sat. The screen lit up. It wasn't a lawyer. It wasn't even a judge. It was a woman in a black blazer, bone-straight hair, and eyes that didn't blink. Miss Carter, she said. I'm Director Hammond, Office of Civil Integrity. You've triggered a ping. Aisha nodded slowly. That means my message went through. Hammond's expression never changed. You contacted a federal monitor under a restricted keyword. That phrase 48A is reserved for racial discrepancy alerts inside sealed detention procedures. Aisha said nothing. As a result, all digital logs related to your detainment are now under third-party audit. A pause. Which means this conversation is being monitored. Aisha smiled. Then let's talk on the record. Hammond tilted her head. We didn't expect you to know how to invoke oversight. That protocol hasn't been used since 2011. Where did you learn it? Clinic case. Wrongful IC detention. San Isidro. Hammond blinked, her first emotion. You're good. Aisha leaned forward. I'm not good. I'm prepared. The screen flickered briefly. Then Hammond spoke again, quieter. The woman in your trunk wasn't dead. Aisha froze. What? Her vitals were suppressed. Drug-induced paralysis. She was alive when we found her. Aisha's heart pounded. Why? She was never meant to reach trial. Someone inside DOJ marked her unreliable. Too dangerous to let testify. You became the vessel. Aisha clenched her fists. So this was a black bag op? No. It was cleanup. Silence thickened. Then Hammond continued. That message you sent? It can't be unsent. So now you have a choice. Aisha stared. I'm listening. You walk out of here in 48 hours. No charges. No record. Your internship restored. In exchange, you sign a sealed agreement. You say nothing. Ever. And if I don't? Hammond didn't blink. You disappear. And this time, we don't make mistakes. Aisha looked at the camera. She knew someone was watching, someone who couldn't interfere yet, but was aware now. I want proof she's alive, Aisha said. Already gone. Witsec. New ID. You'll never find her. Then you have no leverage. Hammond leaned forward. We don't need leverage. We just need silence. The screen cut off. The door opened. She sat still for a moment, breathing steady, rage humming like static beneath her skin. They hadn't broken her, but they were close. And she was running out of time. She didn't sleep. Instead, she studied. Every sound in the hallway. Every blink from the ceiling panel. Every shift in routine. She cataloged it all. And when breakfast arrived, a different tray, a new guard, she saw it. The fault line. A young officer. Nervous hands. Clipboard shaking slightly. Aisha waited until he placed the tray, then spoke calmly. What time do the auditors arrive? The guard froze. I don't know. She looked up at him, voice low. Yes, you do. You were told to prep hallway clearance by 9 a.m. You're the third shift. Means you got the handoff memo. His eyes darted to the door. I'm not allowed to. I know what happens when people speak, but I also know what happens when they don't. She slid the tray back toward him. That woman in my car? She was alive. They told me last night. They used me as a container. You think that's the first time? He stared at the food. Didn't touch it. She continued. I'm not asking you to testify. I'm not asking you to break chain of command. He looked at the wall camera. It's not recording, she said. The red light was disabled 3 days ago. You're just here to keep me quiet until it's over. Silence. Then, in a whisper, "They moved the bag while your trunk was still locked." Aisha blinked. "What?" "I was on the checkpoint review team. Your rental showed clean before the stop. No duffel. No tag. They added it while you were pulled out." Aisha leaned forward, voice trembling now. "That means they falsified entry logs." He nodded once. "And when the external auditors show up?" He looked around, then took something from his pocket, a folded post-it note. "Locker 2B, East Annex. Swipe card codes written inside." He left without another word. Aisha unfolded the note. 3 numbers. A name, H. Mendez. She didn't recognize it, but she knew what it meant. Someone inside had kept the real footage. Someone had doubted the system. And now, someone was helping her. Not from kindness, but because the lie had grown too big. And when that happens, even silence starts to crack. They didn't search her when they moved her again. That was their mistake. The post-it note was tucked under her tongue, dried soft and thin. She swallowed twice when they passed the scanners. Nothing beeped. They called it final review, a sanitized term for what it really was. The last chance to rewrite the story before the auditors arrived. They led her to an administrative wing. No bars, no cameras, just silence and polished floors. She passed a wall of lockers on the way in. She counted them. There it was. 2B. Later, she told herself. Not yet. In the review room sat a man in a tailored charcoal suit. No visible ID. On the desk in front of him, a folder already opened. He didn't greet her. "We've amended your record," he said. "You're being released under sealed diversion. No charges. No public entry. You'll be flagged in federal systems for sensitive contact, but otherwise, clean." She nodded once. He pushed a form across the table. "Sign here. Non-disclosure. Lifetime." She reached for the pen, then paused. "What about the footage?" The man didn't flinch. "It's gone." She looked at him. "Not all of it." Silence. He leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She met his eyes. "Locker 2B, East Annex. Swipe code 713. H. Mendez left 1 copy." His jaw didn't move, but his eyes did, a quick flicker of calculation. She pressed harder. "You destroy that without my name on a full release record? That's obstruction. You bury the footage and I disappear? That's federal conspiracy." The man's voice dropped. "You don't understand what you're playing with." "I do. That's why I'm not asking for justice. I'm asking for proof I existed here." She tapped the paper. "You file this release with the Department of Records. You include my original intake number. You reinstate my bar credentials. And then I walk." He stared, then reached for a phone. She waited, motionless, as he murmured instructions. 5 minutes later, a second man entered, white lab coat, folder in hand. He handed it to her. Aisha flipped it open. Her name, her ID, an apology letter signed by a deputy supervisor, a sealed form indicating administrative error in field-level custody. She signed the NDA. They scanned her retina, recorded her print. And then, they let her go. No ride, no bag, no goodbye, just a silent hallway and a side door marked maintenance exit. She stepped out into gray morning. The wind hit her like a slap. And still, she stood tall. Because the footage wasn't the win. The release wasn't the win. The win was that now, she had her story. And next time, they wouldn't see her coming. She didn't speak for 3 days. No interviews. No emails. She stayed in a motel 5 exits outside Bakersfield, watching traffic crawl under broken streetlights. The folder they gave her sat untouched on the nightstand. Her hand still trembled when she looked at it. On the 4th morning, she opened it. Inside, a paper trail carefully constructed to hide the truth in legalese. Administrative mislabeling. Inadmissible field data. Chain of command misstep. No names. No charges. No mention of witness 42A. But they'd made one mistake. They'd signed it. She flipped to the last page. The signature of a regional director. A timestamp. A file code. That file code led to a processing server. And that server had metadata. She knew, because that was her specialty. Before law, before anything, she'd studied systems. Information leakage. Document drift. Every machine left fingerprints. And now, so did they. She stood in front of the mirror, pulled her badge lanyard from the bottom of her bag, and hung it around her neck. The word suspended was still printed across it. But it wouldn't be for long. She called only one person, Professor Nadine Rothschild. The woman who got her into the Innocence Project. The only mentor who ever told her the system could be beaten from inside, but only if you understood every bolt it was built on. Nadine answered on the first ring. I heard. Aisha's voice cracked. It's real. I lived it. I believe you. I have records. Not enough for court, but enough to start a file. Silence on the other end. Then Nadine asked quietly, do you want the world to know? Aisha looked out the window. The morning sun had no warmth. Not yet, she said. I want them to forget I'm watching. She hung up. Later that night, she mailed a single envelope. No return address. No signature. Inside, a copy of the intake form. The locker code. A time-stamped printout from the server cache. She mailed it to a junior clerk in the Office of Civil Integrity. Not a hero. Not a whistleblower. Just a shadow in a system full of ghosts. She wasn't trying to burn it down. She was trying to memorize its weak points. Because the next time someone like her vanished, there'd be a map. And this time, someone would follow it. She closed the motel door behind her and stepped into the morning light. No sirens. No headlines. Just one woman walking away. Still standing. Still watching. Still free. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.